What do you know of fear? Fear is for the winter, my little lord, when the snows fall 100 feet deep and the ice wind comes howling out of the north. Fear is for the long night, when the sun hides its face for years at a time, and little children are born and live and die all in darkness, while the dire wolves grow gaunt and hungry, and the white walkers move through the woods. Thousands and thousands of years ago, a winter fell that was cold and hard and endless beyond all memory of man. There came a night that lasted a generation, and kings shivered and died in their castles, even as the swineherds in their hovels. Women smothered their children rather than see them starve, and cried and felt their tears freeze on their cheeks. Her voice and her needles fell silent, and she glanced up at Bran with pale, filmy eyes and asked, "So, child, this is the sort of story you like?" I sure hope this is the sort of story you like, because this episode of Beneath the Gold is all about the long night, a terrible darkness that cloaked the world in shadow for years and years. A period of giant ice spiders and pale demons with blue eyes which burn like ice, as well as blood betrayals, sacrifice, and a hero wielding a legendary flaming sword. A period when ice and fire will violently clash against one another. So bundle up and strap in, for this episode is as frigid as the howling winds of the north and as deep as the vast snows previously mentioned by Old Nan in this earlier passage from Bran 4, A Game of Thrones. Apologies for, being me instead of, sounding like an old lady. I don't have a very deep bench. My name is Jesse Carson, and this episode of Beneath the Gold will cover the others, wights, the long night itself and how it affected both Westeros and Essos, Azor Ahai and Nissa, Lightbringer, Dragonglass, the Battle for the Dawn, and later in this episode we will finally see the construction of the wall. Before we get pulled into this horrific but amazing time in history, I just want to take a quick moment to thank all of the wonderful artists who have generously contributed their work to the new video podcast, which can now be found on Patreon as well as YouTube. Their awesome work brings an immersive new element to Beneath the Gold, and I can't even begin to tell you how much I enjoy working with these fine people, so cheers to you all. We will now be doing an Artist of the Week feature at facebook.com/beneaththegold, where we showcase these artists and also point you in the direction of their galleries, so I hope you can come give us a like, follow us, and be part of all the fun, and show these talented folks some love and appreciation. While we're at it, the audio-only version of this podcast can now be found on iTunes, Acast, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, and Spreaker, for those of you who don't have time to point your face at a screen during our shows, which is totally understandable. Also, we just completely revamped our Patreon page, and there are some really cool rewards and ranks to be had there. With Patreon, you can get early access to these episodes, free downloads of the instrumentals, trivia, which we'll be doing soon, as well as access to the upcoming bonus episodes, and plenty more, starting at $1 a month. Plus, if you pledge for 1 month and decide to back out, there's absolutely no penalty for that, and we greatly appreciate every last bit of support you give us. If you're interested, please take some time to stop by patreon.com/beneaththegold to see our new community as we try to get it up and running and what we have to offer. If you like what you see, you can join our company as either a knight, a lord, or commander for $1, $5, or $10 per month, respectively. And if you think this podcast is worthy, please share it with your friends or leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below. It truly makes my day to hear from you guys and to continue building on this community brick by brick. Finally, I want to give a huge thanks to my patrons Tim and Jacob, who have recently become commanders in the company, and a thank you to our friend Nikki, our exiled lord, lady. With that said, let us now step into the vast darkness that is the long night. The world of ice and fire. As the first men established their realms following the pact, little troubled them save their own feuds and wars, or so the histories tell us. It is also from these histories that we learn of the long night when a season of winter came that lasted a generation in which children were born, grew into adulthood, and in many cases died without ever seeing the spring. Indeed, some of the old wives' tales say that they never even beheld the light of day, so complete was the winter that fell on the world. While this last may well be no more than fancy, the fact that some cataclysm took place many thousands of years ago seems certain. As we discussed at the end of our episode on the Great Empire of the Dawn, legends of the East would have us believe that the blood betrayal is what began the long night, when the Amethyst Empress was slain by her younger brother, allowing him to seize the crown and take control of the empire, thus proclaiming himself the Bloodstone Emperor. During his reign, the Bloodstone Emperor would practice dark arts, cannibalism, torture, and necromancy. He would enslave his own people and cast down the true gods of Yi Ti, and in turn worship a black stone that had fallen from the sky. Horrified by the blood betrayal, the Maiden Maid of Light turned her back on the world, allowing the Lion of Night to descend on the world and punish the wickedness of man. There are a lot of things to be talked about when it comes to the true cause of the long night, and there is so much more to see behind this veil of myth and legend. I'm going to compile enough of my own thoughts and theories on the matter to bring us a bonus episode on this as well as a few other things related to the long night. But as of now, a man by the name of LML, Lucifer means Lightbringer, has me almost wholly convinced with his thoughts on the cause of the long night, and I encourage you to head over to his website, lucifermeanslightbringer.com, where you can read his mind-boggling essays, listen to his podcast, or watch his videos. Check out What Caused the Long Night if you want your mind to be blown, as this video offers you a whole new dimension to the story we have been presented. There are also a lot of other good competing theories out there on the forums at westeros.org, as well as reddit.com/r/ASOIAF. A Song of Ice and Fire is like an onion, and our goal as obsessive fans is to peel back as many layers as possible. And I promise you that contributors such as LML will rip a few layers right off with minimal tears but maximum face melting. Whatever the true cause was, we do know that this winter brought famine, terror, and sheer devastation with it. In Westeros, this winter also brought forth a mysterious race known as the Others, also known as White Walkers, who descended from the land of always winter, the unmapped region of the world that lies as far north as north goes. Some believe that rather than the winter bringing the Others brought the winter. The Others have been described as tall and gaunt, with flesh as pale as milk. They have blue eyes that burn as bright as the stars of the night sky. Strange, dangerous, and terrifying, yet somehow beautiful, elegant, and light on their feet. Old Nan refers to them as dead things, yet George R.R. Martin himself has specifically stated that they are not dead. Melisandre believes them to be the cold children of the Great Other, who, in the faith of R'hllor, is a god of darkness, cold, and death, and whose name must never be spoken. The language used by the Others has been described as sounding like the cracking of ice on a winter lake, and their laughter being as sharp as icicles. The Others wear reflective armor which is used as an effective camouflage. It shifts in color with every step. It is able to pick up the images of its surroundings just as a clear, still pond tends to do. They are superior swordsmen, lightning quick and graceful. They wield unworldly weapons, thin crystal swords sharper than any razor and capable of slicing through ringmail as if it were silk. The swords are alive with moonlight and have a faint blue glow to them. When pressed on what substance these weapons are made from, George answered, "Ice, but not like regular old ice. The others can do things with ice that we can't imagine and make substances of it." When a sword like this comes into contact with a steel blade, the normal ring of metal on metal is replaced by a high, thin sound similar to an animal screaming in pain, at the edge of human hearing. If it brushes the flame of a torch, a sharp screech is also heard. These blades are cold enough to cover a metal blade in frost and shatter a steel blade into a deadly rain of sharp needles. As I stated earlier, the others are light on their feet. So light, in fact, that they leave no prints behind to mark their travels, and wherever they go, the cold rides beside them. They have been known to appear during snowstorms only to melt away when the skies clear. They hide from the sun and emerge at night, though some stories claim that they bring the night. White mists also herald their approach, as Tormund tells Jon in A Dance with Dragons, Jon 12, "You know nothing. You killed a dead man, I heard. Man's killed 100. A man can fight the dead, but when their masters come, when the white mists rise up, how do you fight a mist, Crow? Shadows with teeth, air so cold it hurts to breathe, like a knife inside your chest. You do not know. You cannot know. Can your sword cut cold?" We will see, Jon thought. As far as the debate between the cold bringing the others and the others bringing the cold, I believe that perhaps it is a bit of both. If the wall wasn't there to contain them, I'm not fully convinced that they could just march south at any time and cause winter to engulf Westeros at a time of their choosing. I think that they're free to roam throughout a region that is cold enough for them, such as north of the wall, but I also believe that these creatures are so frigid that they radiate the cold from their bodies, causing the area around them to become even colder at their approach. Maybe from the other's perspective, they can feel the heat emanating from the living. As old Nan said, they hated iron and fire and the touch of the sun, and hated every living creature with hot blood in its veins. There are plenty of people who disagree with what I just said, and I'm not one to cling to a certain theory once I'm convinced otherwise, so if you want to share your opinion on the matter, please leave a comment on Patreon or the Beneath the Gold Facebook page, or find me on Reddit as Megor the Fool and berate me as you see fit. There's definitely much and more to be discussed on this matter, and many other topics. Moving on. On top of these awesome yet blood-curdling characteristics, the others also have another ability that makes them exponentially more dangerous. They can resurrect and reanimate dead men and dead creatures, including bears, mammoths, horses, and direwolves. Some tales claim that they also ride giant ice spiders. Martin has refused to answer how they reanimate these creatures, however, so we don't know if they control them the same way a warg or a skin changer can control an animal. But these dead men and dead animals are known as wights. Wights allegedly rise once they are touched by the cold that accompanies the others. Anyone who falls against the others must be burned, or else the dead will rise again as their thralls. It seems to me that even those who wander north of the wall and die from other unrelated causes are also subject to be seized by the cold grasp of the others. This is why burning the dead is customary among the free folk. Their appearance depends solely on the condition of the corpse when it was raised. Some remain lifelike, while others are badly rotten. Once resurrected, the process of decomposition seems to stop dead in its tracks. They also have eyes that are so blue they burn like ice, and their hands and feet are black and swollen with pooled and congealed blood. They are able to remain in a sort of stasis, frozen and buried under the snow, where they wait for an opportunity to attack the living. This is confirmed in Bran 3, A Dance with Dragons, when they attack Bran's party just outside of the cave of the Three-Eyed Crow. Wights have a strange, cold scent that causes animals to panic once they catch a whiff of it, like when Jafer flowers and Othor are found by Ghost, and the members of the Night's Watch are forced to carry the bodies back to Castle Black on crude slings that they have to make out in the field, because the horses as well as the hounds want nothing to do with those corpses. Ghost is special, of course. It is unknown whether wights can cross the wall on their own, though corpses brought through the wall can still be reanimated as wights. They don't seem to be mindless, murderous creatures, which is apparent when Othor rose in Castle Black and made an attempt on Lord Commander Mormont's life. He knew who he was and where to find him. Whether that knowledge came from a memory within Othor himself, or he was being controlled by the others, I couldn't say. Wights are said to be attracted to warm blood and will attack with surprising strength. They feel no pain and will keep fighting regardless of injury. Even when limbs are completely detached from their bodies, the limbs will continue to move and wiggle around, and even crawl up one's leg and claw and rip at any living flesh it finds in its grip. Jon discovers this to his revulsion after he hacks off Othor's arm to save Ghost from being strangled by the vengeful wight. And Jon eventually wins this vicious fight and saves Mormont's life by snatching an oil lamp away from Gior's hand and flinging it at some curtains, and then in a rush of adrenaline, taking the burning drapes in his hand and whipping and smothering Othor. Luckily for them, wights are quite flammable and will be quickly consumed once set aflame. When a wight is truly destroyed, the bright blue vanishes from their eyes. Sir Alliser later takes a still-moving hand from one of the wights all the way down to King's Landing in an effort to scare the Iron Throne into sending more men to the wall. Tyrion Lannister is Hand of the King at that point, who hates Alliser, and he keeps him waiting long enough for the hand to decompose, leaving only bone and losing whatever force that had kept it moving as Alliser traveled all the way south. Although Wiki of Ice and Fire claims it is Othor's hand, I'm guessing he took Jafer's hand after his body was cut to pieces, because he states, "I brought Jared's hand, torn from his corpse by the bastard's wolf." I don't know whether this was a mistake on George's part, or Sir Alliser got the name wrong, but the mention of Ghost ripping the hand off seems to point to Jafer's hand and not Othor, and maybe Alliser got the name mixed up since it's kind of close to Jared and Jafer, and he doesn't seem to care much for bastards anyway. So, he probably didn't know that person very well anyway. Regardless, it's interesting that the hand stayed animated even after the body was destroyed all the way back up north. That's like some 5G, 6G wireless connection there. Now, let's move forward by heading back. The focus of today is not in the present, but deep in the past. So far, we've discussed the different characteristics of these creatures and the rules they seem to abide by. So with all of this in mind, let's head 8,000 years to the past to the first Long Night. During the Age of Heroes, a terrible winter engulfed the world in darkness. A winter that swept over the land and laid waste with famine and starvation. During these rough times, it is customary for the oldest and weakest of the Northmen to tell their loved ones that they are going out hunting, knowing that they will never return, and thus leaving a little more food behind for those more likely to survive. This winter was surely no exception. Mothers would smother their children rather than see them starve, and would cry and feel the tears freeze on their cheeks. As if all of that wasn't enough to contend with, this particular winter also brought the others, riding atop their dead horses and giant ice spiders, and leading an army of mammoths, bears, direwolves, men, and quite possibly ravenous giants. According to Old Nan, they swept over holdfasts and cities and kingdoms, felled heroes and armies by the score, riding their pale dead horses and leading hosts of the slain. All the swords of men could not stay their advance, and even maidens and suckling babes found no pity in them. They hunted the maids through the frozen forests and fed their dead servants on the flesh of human children. The children of the forest and their allies, the first men, fought bravely and valiantly against the others, but failed to hold their ground. With the first men and children in retreat, and the seemingly unstoppable others advancing further and further to the south, the future of Westeros was looking grim and grimmer. Though it seems as of now that Westeros was the only continent facing the others, Essos wasn't safe from this winter's icy grasp either. From the world of ice and fire, the long night, Lomas Longstrider, in his Wonders Made by Man, recounts meeting descendants of the Rhoynar in the ruins of the festival city of Croyane, who have tales of a darkness that made the Rhoyne dwindle and disappear, her waters frozen as far south as the joining of the Selhoru. According to these tales, the return of the sun came only when a hero convinced Mother Rhoyne's many children, lesser gods, such as the Crab King and the Old Man of the River, to put aside their bickering and join together to sing a secret song that brought back the day. The River Rhine is the greatest and mightiest river in all of the world. Its many tributaries stretch across much of western Essos. It originates near Goyandro, a now ruined city east of Pentos in the Velvet Hills, where the Upper Rhine converges with the Little Rhine, and from there it runs southeast to Dagger Lake, where it is joined by the River Coin and turns south all the way past Croyane, then Selhorus, and ultimately ends at the Summer Sea, where it forms a giant delta upon which lies the city of Volantis. The Selhoru joins the mighty Rhine at Selhorus, which illustrates just how far south the river was frozen during this winter. The Rhoynar are a river-faring people who dwelt on the banks of the Rhine. They worship a number of gods, the chief goddess being the Mother Rhine, the personification of the river itself, with her nourishing waters giving life and prosperity to the Rhoynar since the dawn of days. The Crab King is one of her children, a lesser god of the Rhoynar religion, who has fought with another son, the Old Man of the River, for dominion over all life below the flowing water. The Old Man of the River has taken the form of a giant horned turtle, and other giant turtles of the Rhine found today are aptly named after him, the Old Men of the River. In A Dance with Dragons, Tyrion 4, the shy maid is sailing down the Rhine at Nysar, where they see a huge horned turtle, which Yandri believes is the Old Man himself. During the long night, an unnamed hero came to the many children of Mother Rhine and convinced them to put aside their petty grievances against one another and to join in a secret song to bring back the day. What this song was, I couldn't tell you. Was it the Song of Ice and Fire? I don't know. The Bear and the Maiden Fair? Why not? Maybe it was something else entirely. But we'll be back to the Rhine in a later episode. Let's head even further east and see how these people fared against the long night. A figure known as Coloquo Votar out of Volantis once ventured to the far east of Essos and visited all the lands of the Jade Sea. He is the author of the Jade Compendium, a collection of stories and legends from these places. Maester Yendel considers it the best source for information on Qarth, as well as the foremost work on the lands of the Jade Sea. In it, he recalls an interesting legend from Yi Ti, which states that after the Maiden Maid of Light turned her back on the world, and the sun hid its face for a lifetime, disaster was only averted by the deeds of a woman with a monkey's tail. That's interesting. I don't really have any connections other than Tyrion being referred to as somebody that was born with a tail and kind of looks like a monkey, little demon monkey he's referred to. Other than that, I'm not sure if it goes any further than, a lot of different regions of the world had different myths surrounding this terrible fucking time. So that's about all I got for you on that one. It is also believed that there are records in Ahai that tell of a darkness falling over the land, and in this darkness there came a great hero, most commonly known as Azor Ahai. But he is known to other cultures as Herkun the Hero, Yentar, Nefarion, and Eldrick Shadow Chaser. Some badass names. I wish I had one of them badass names. The legend of Azor Ahai spread from Ahai and is especially prevalent among the followers of R'hllor. In order to fight against this great darkness, Azor Ahai needed a hero's sword. It is said that he labored for 30 days and 30 nights until it was done, heat, hammer, and fold. But then he went to temper it in water and the sword broke apart. However, a true hero never gives up quite so easily, so he started over again. The second attempt took 50 days and 50 nights to make this sword even better than the first. To temper it, he captured a lion and drove the sword into its heart, but once more the sword burst. The third time, he worked at it for 100 days and nights, heat, hammer, and fold, until it was far greater than the first two. He labored with a heavy heart, knowing beforehand what he will have to do to complete this one. And this time, he called for his wife, Nisa, and asked that she bare her breast. He then took the white-hot blade from his sacred fires and told her that he loved her best of all that is in this world. He then thrust the smoking blade into her heart, with Nisa letting out a cry of both anguish and ecstasy that is said to have left a crack across the face of the moon. But her blood and soul, strength and courage combined with the steel of the sword, creating a sword that would burn fiery hot in battle and would never be cold to the touch, but warm as Nisa had been warm. A sword known as Lightbringer, the Red Sword of Heroes. A prophecy that came around later claims that the others will someday return and Azor Ahai will be reborn to lead the fight. That is a tale for the future, however, so for now, let's head back to Westeros. When we last left, the children and the first men were fleeing south from the advance of the others. The first men, with their bronze weapons and shields, were outmatched by the others with their reflective armor and razor-sharp crystal swords. Quick digression, there are some lingering mysteries on bronze as well as the runes of the first men. There seems to be some significant applications and uses of these things, somewhere beneath the surface of the story. We will dig deeper somewhere down the road. I just want you to know that there's more to it than meets the eye. But regardless, the first men were being driven back at this point. Their allies, the children of the forest, didn't do much better with their shirts of woven leaves and leg bindings made of bark. Their weapons of daggers, blades, and arrowheads contained no metals, but they did, however, contain Dragonglass. This volcanic glass, also called obsidian, is believed by the small folk to be made by dragons. Maesters claim it comes from the fires of the earth. Blades made of this material are sharper than steel, but far more brittle. It was eventually discovered that once an other was pierced by Dragonglass, it would die almost instantly, marking a turning point in this war against the others. In a storm of swords, Samwell Tarly, Gren, and a few survivors from the Fist are fleeing south. At some point, an other appears atop an undead horse. In a panic, Sam earns his nickname of Sam the Slayer by plunging his Dragonglass dagger into the other. This causes the other to shrink and puddle, dissolving away within 20 heartbeats. leaving only the dagger. Gren bends down to scoop it up, but flings it out of his hand because it has become extremely cold. As of now, it is uncertain if Dragonglass can destroy wights in the same manner, as the only time we witness a wight being attacked with Dragonglass, it happens to break on the wight's armor. Let's get back to Old Nan's tale that she tells to Bran in A Game of Thrones, Bran 4. So as cold and death filled the earth, the last hero determined to seek out the children in the hopes that their ancient magics could win back what the armies of men had lost. He set out into the Deadlands with a sword, a horse, a dog, and a dozen companions. For years he searched until he despaired of ever finding the children of the forest in their secret cities. One by one his friends died, and his horse, and finally even his dog, and his sword froze so hard the blade snapped when he tried to use it, and the others smelled the hot blood in him and came silent on his trail, stalking him with packs of pale white spiders big as hounds. After years of searching and countless attacks from giants, wights, and others, the last hero finally reached the children and gained their assistance. How they assisted him exactly requires some speculation. It seems to me with his sword snapping from the cold that he would require a new weapon. So did the children teach him the secret of Dragonglass? Did they help him by somehow creating a new type of weapon entirely? There is at least one record that speaks of the last hero slaying others with a blade of dragon steel. Samwell discovers this account and passes it on to Jon, who wonders if dragon steel refers to Valyrian steel, which is precisely what Sam was thinking. Personally, I'm not so sure, for reasons we will discuss in the future. It's very possible, but it's possibly not. I'm kind of on the fence on that one. But for now, let's move on. With the forging of this new alliance came the sword in the darkness, the fire that burns against the cold, the shield that guards the realms of men. The order that would become known as the Night's Watch began to form. With this new knowledge of how to reduce their fearsome enemies into a steaming, non-threatening puddle of nothing, the men and children of the forest, led by the last hero with his dragon steel blade, came together to bring the others' advance to a halt. At long last, the army of the living shattered the endless winter and sent the others fleeing to the icy north, in a legendary battle that is now known as the Battle for the Dawn. With this most glorious victory, the sun finally came out of hiding, sending this once deadly winter away to cower in the far north, bringing an end to the long night. Though the living finally won out, the others were still out there, licking their wounds and lurking about the haunted forest in the land of always winter. To make sure they stayed there, and to prevent them from descending on the kingdoms of men in the future, a colossal barrier of stone, earth, and solid ice was built. With the aid of giants, the Night's Watch, as well as the children of the forest, the infamous Brandon the Builder oversaw the construction of this great fortification, which would come to be known simply as the Wall. Maesters dispute if the base of the wall was made of stone, but they generally agree that builders of the Watch used sledges to transport ice, which was cut from frozen lakes found in the haunted forest. Their work continued until the wall stood 700 feet tall and stretched across northern Westeros for 300 miles, from the Bay of Seals in the east to the Frostfangs and the Gorge in the west. It runs straight as an arrow from Castle Black to Eastwatch by the Sea, and twists and turns like a snake from Castle Black to the Shadow Tower in the west. Some foundation blocks in hilly regions, such as near Greyguard, send it to a whopping 900 feet in the air. The top of the wall is wide enough for a dozen mounted knights to ride side by side, and it is even thicker at the base. The top is complete with catapults, cranes, and trebuchets. The wall isn't only fortified with ice and stone, it is also protected by ancient spells and sorcery, which result from the contributions of the children in order to keep creatures such as the others from passing through. According to legend, the wall is vulnerable to the Horn of Joramun. Upon completion, the sworn brothers of the Night's Watch would man the wall, eventually building 19 castles which span across northern Westeros on the south side of the wall. From the end of the Long Night some 8,000 years ago until now, they have defended the realm against the others and other monsters and men, though little by little the Watch has forgotten its main mission and have slowly shifted their focus onto the free folk. Most people in the present day believe the others to be extinct, if they ever existed at all, but we know that the threat is real, and that the others will come again, with vengeance in their icy hearts. We can only pray that the living will be ready to face them. That will bring this episode of Beneath the Gold to a close. I tried to go as deep as I can while also staying focused on the matter at hand, though I merely scratched the surface of some of these things, and there's much more to explore. Were Azor Ahai and the last hero the same person? Could Lightbringer be the Dragonsteel blade? Were these people and swords merely symbolic metaphors for some cataclysmic event that took place thousands of years ago? We will have a bonus episode for our patrons who pledge $1 or more up on patreon.com/beneaththegold, and we will further discuss these subjects, as well as the true cause of the Long Night, the use of iron, bronze, and runes during this period, glass candles and obsidian, Dragonsteel and Valyrian steel. There's already a ton of juicy stuff for that episode, which I just couldn't squeeze into this one, and I hope you will join us and be a part of it. Thank you for listening. Our community glows brighter every day. Until next time, beneath the gold, the bitter steel.